Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for joining me today for this fun little session on Azure. Now, I think a lot of you who might have seen or met with me or discussed know that I have this special little love for anything and everything Azure. So today what we're going to do is we're going to discuss a little bit. We're going to show how we can deploy a Node.js website using Azure App Service and thus understand the benefits that cloud computing can provide us and of course how cool these tech are. So thank you so much once again for joining in. And once again, I am Aditya. Now, before we begin, let's do one thing. Let's do introduce yourselves in the chat once, and yeah, do let me know what exposure you have to cloud technologies, whether you've used Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, or any of these platforms in the past. I think that will be absolutely lovely. Also, while we are joining in, make sure that you go ahead and you register for the March challenges. I'm going to run you through that right now. So, what you're going to do right now is, first of all, as soon as you're up here, just make sure that you go ahead, you visit the March challenges link. I will put that up here once and share this link in the chat as well. So all you gotta do is visit hackpack/March challenges. What that'll do is it'll take you to this little link here. If you can see it in the chat, do let me know. That would be absolutely lovely. So yeah, what you gotta do is you gotta go over here, just go register and check in. I am checked in already. Once you're done with that, just scroll down. You will find deploy a Node.js website using Azure App Service. Click on this link. It was already open here, but never mind. As soon as you do that, just make sure you go ahead and click on register and check in. So do make sure to complete these preliminary steps here once while we're still beginning. And if you have any trouble, let me know here in the chat. And yeah, I see we have folks joining in. So it's a good thing. We're just beginning off with the show. So yeah, once again, hi everyone. Yay, I'm so happy you're excited. We're just beginning. So please go ahead, introduce yourself. Let me know what sort of exposure you have to cloud technologies already, whether you've used Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud in the past. And today I'm just here. I'm all for hyping up Azure. Azure is one of my loves, to be honest. I work extensively with Azure. So yeah, I am really excited to share more about Azure with you all right now. All right, I guess we've gone over the basic registration process. If you want me to do that, I'm gonna go ahead once again. Once you've visited the March challenges link, which is the one that I shared first, once you go ahead, go click register and check in on that if you haven't already. As soon as that is done, just scroll below to the March events to March 10th, where we have deploy a Node.js website using Azure App Service. Once we have gone ahead, we have done that, you will find that it takes you to this second link where again you have to register and check in. As soon as that is done, you can just click on join event and you will arrive here on Twitch. Yeah. So let's start talking about Azure now. Azure is Microsoft's primary cloud computing solution, which has a variety, a plethora of technologies available up there. And it is one of the largest cloud providers in the world, only second to AWS. And I personally really enjoy working with Azure. I think it's got a very developer friendly interface and it's got great features for deploying and scaling any of your applications, as well as some fantastic AI and ML offerings. But today we're going to primarily talk about what sort of offerings it has if you want to deploy your own web app. So let's come to Azure App Service, which is the one we're going to be working with primarily today. Oh, I see you have used Google Cloud. Awesome. So it does work. I mean, as a cloud provider, it does fulfill similar requirements. It's just that it has slightly different tools. So now, once you know, since we're working with App Service today, let me share a little bit about Azure App Service. Azure App Service is a fully managed platform for building and deploying as well as scaling your web apps. It has a plethora of features, fully managed by them with built-in infrastructure maintenance, security patching, and scaling. It has built-in continuous integration and continuous deployment offerings, which are fully tied in with GitHub as well, which is absolutely amazing because it makes life convenient for us as developers. And of course, it has integration with virtual networks, and it has the ability to run on an isolated and dedicated environment as well. Apart from that, if you later on want to, put up your own domains and all, App Service actually has those offerings available within the Azure portal too. So you can do all of that. And it does allow you to quickly work with build web apps and APIs and deploy them in the cloud. Now, Azure App Service is being used by some absolutely huge, insane brands right now. So the Academy of Motion Pictures and Arts and Sciences, Heineken, well, if we have any football fans, Real Madrid, of course, that is the biggie. For any football fan, I mean, of course, that's definitely something relatable. We've got Real Madrid who have their infrastructure on there. Absolute is using, and so is Chipotle. So there are some very major organizations working on a global level that are utilizing Azure App Service for their own needs at the moment. I think that is definitely very cool. So first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to make an Azure account if we don't have one already. Now, if you're a student with a .edu ID, or if you have the GitHub Student Developer Pack, you can go over, hop on to the Azure for Students offer, with which you can get $100 worth of Azure credits for free. So all you got to do is go ahead, type in aka.ms/a4s, just as seen on the screen right now. And as soon as you do that, you will be able to activate $100 credits and create an account for yourself at the same time. Now, I am also going to share this link here in the chat once to make it a little more easy for you to access. But once you're done, once you've created your account, you can then hop on to the Azure portal here by going on to portal.azure.com, or you could just directly click here as well. One and the same thing. Just log in. I've got my account set already. And as soon as that is done, you can now see the Azure portal here with all of its offerings and availabilities. So it's got a variety of features here that you can directly see as soon as you jump in. We've got this whole little dashboard for us. And at the same time, it shows us tools like Microsoft Learn, any subscriptions, resource groups, any recent resources we've used, as well as a variety of services here. And this entire dashboard is actually customizable as well. Now, what we want to do is, since we're going to be deploying a Node.js application today, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an Azure App Service instance, a web app for us, essentially. So in order to do that, what you would do is you go ahead and click on create a resource here. As you see, it'll take you to shows the Azure Marketplace with all of its offerings. We see web app here directly in the, well, it's there in the popular options. So all you got to do is just go click on web app there. Now it'll take you to this little page where you can see all the subscriptions and whatever details you need to input for your Azure web app. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new resource group. Typically, if it's a new account, it's going to be a new resource group as well. So I'm just going to name it MLH March Challenges. The resource groups here are there so that you can group resources with similar purposes together. And it makes management of your resources a little easier. So that is essentially why we have resource groups here in Azure. And at the same time, if you want to give access to certain features and certain resources to people, if you're on a common account, then resource groups allow you to do that. So we just go ahead. I'm going to create a new resource group called MLH March Challenges. For the web app name, let's see what we can do is I'll just write Aditya MLH test. So this is a name that has to be unique on the Azure platform. If it isn't unique, Azure will not allow you to create it because this is going to be your website URL once it is deployed on Azure. We are going to publish code. You have the option to publish a Docker container as well, but we are going ahead with the code option. For our runtime stack, I'm going to select Node 14 LTS since I have Node 14 installed on my system, and that's what I'm going to be using to demo. So I'm just going to go ahead, select Node 14 LTS. Linux here is all right. For my region, I will select the region closest to me. So that typically I tend to go ahead with the Central India option. You can choose whatever region seems closest to you. And it has a plethora of regions available here, to be honest. So you can just go ahead with whatever is the best for you. Preferably the nearest option is the best option. So that is the one you can choose. For app service plan, it does create a new plan for you. For the SKU and size, what I will recommend is just go to dev and sorry, just go to dev. You can create either a B1 or yeah, for Linux, I mean the F1 is not available. I think that should be there for Windows in that case. So, if you just change size and you go back to dev and test, you can just create the free tier. That should be good enough. And you just go ahead and apply that. I am going to go with the free tier because for this test, we do not need resources that allow us to scale, since that is not going to be my focus right now. But if you look at this spec picker, it does have production tiers as well with dedicated workloads in case you need to scale to a massive extent. And it does specify estimated costs for each of these as well. So that is something Azure has done in order to make choosing an option a little easier for you. And it shows what all extra included hardware is available. There are a few more optional selections, and these range up to very, very high amounts as well. I mean, 70,000 a month, of course, as a student, that's not something you want to be investing on. And I mean, with isolated tiers, of course, you've got even larger extents for dev. Since these are less demanding workloads, we're just going to go with the free option for the time being. But you can choose these later on when you're building using Azure. Now, as soon as we're done with that, we just go ahead next. Monitoring typically offers us certain options. It shows us application insights essentially. Now, application insights is something that I recommend enabling because what it'll do is it'll allow you to get insights and logs and essentially get anything that's happening on your application. Application insights is the perfect resource for you to monitor. So it allows you to observe any problems or, of course, essentially how the functioning of your app is taking place. Tags not mandatory. If you want to keep a tag, you can. This just enables you to categorize resources accordingly. I am gonna skip the tag right now, but I mean, of course, if you want to, you can just go ahead with web app. Oops, sorry about that. And just mention the MLH. I mean, you can mention anything that you want for the time being. Make sure it's meaningful. For this case, I'm just gonna keep it as the MLH test. And after that, you go ahead to review and create. And as soon as this little thing loads it for you, you can just check any of the details that you need to. Just give it a second. It does take a slight amount of time on occasion. Yep, there we have it. So you can check whatever details you have here. In case you need to edit any of these, you can go back, of course, once again. But once you've gone through these and these seem cool, you just go ahead, click on create. So as soon as that is done, it will initialize the deployment of these resources and this resource group for you. And it will create a resource group for you. It will add the web app instance, application insights, all of the resources, and it'll show you which instances have been created, what has been deployed. So this does make for a good experience because you know absolutely exactly what is happening at what time. So you're fully aware of at what stage of the deployment it is in. Exactly, it shows me my resource which has been created. It has the operation details. It shows me the status. That's definitely a good thing for us. So now this can take a little bit of time sometimes. So in that case, while this deployment, oh, it's almost complete. In that case, just do mention any queries you might have in the chat right now. And while the deployment is in progress, I'll be happy to answer those. We do have a few folks here in the chat. Oh, there we go. Our deployment has succeeded. So as soon as that is done, you can just go ahead, click on Go Resource. Now, when you look at this little portal, it'll show you all the details of your app. It'll show in case there is any data coming into the web app instance that has been created, any data output, any HTTP requests, response time, etc., etc. And here is the URL that has been created for us. So let me just go ahead, go to a new website, and I'll show you what it looks like when you create it for the first time. So as soon as you run it, it'll create this little page for you which says, "Hey, app service developers." This is their basic template. And if you are able to see this, it means your app is, so your web app has been, resource has been created and is up and running now. Along with that, you might be able to see some other features. We've got activity log. We've got access controls if you want to give access to another user. We've got tags, as we've created one already, in case you want to diagnose problems, security, events. And at the same time, we've got our deployments. Now, when it comes to the deployments, we've got deployment slots. This is not something that is typically there in the free tier, but this essentially allows you to create a staging environment before you want to send your app into production. And then we have the deployment center, of course. Now, this is what we use in order to implement CI/CD. I'm going to get to this in a bit, because first I want to show you how we can achieve this process, how we can just put up a Node.js application and directly deploy from VS Code once as well. Then I'm going to get to the CI/CD. So this is just a little tour of our Azure portal here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump and I'm going to hop over to VS Code. And within VS Code, what we're going to do is, first things first, you have to go ahead and log into your Azure account. If you are already logged in, all well and good. Otherwise, I'll show you the process once. You can just, let me just sign out and I'll show you. What you're going to need is, if you do not see the Azure section, please hop over to extensions, click on Azure tools. You're going to be able to see Azure account, of course. This is something you will, either if you don't have it installed, make sure you do that. The next one that we definitely need to install is Azure App Service, because we're going to try a deployment from Visual Studio Code here during this activity. This extension is going to be essential. When you install this extension, you're going to see an Azure App Service feature. You're going to see an Azure icon here on our tray. And as soon as you click on that, you're going to see App Service. So here I can just go ahead, sign into my Azure account directly from here. It'll take me to my browser using the OAuth offering. And as soon as it does that, it'll show me which account I want to select. So once I select my account, once I log in after that, I can just close this page, go back, and it's gonna just load and log me in. And it shows my subscription there. Now, what I want to do is I want to create a Node application, right? So let's create an empty Node template using the scaffolding available to all of us. I'm just gonna go git bash, or actually not. I had some trouble with git bash earlier. Let's go with Windows Terminal. I find it insanely cool, to be honest. That's the way we wanna go. CMD. So let's just go to my desktop. And as soon as that is done, as soon as I'm on my desktop, I've got my little command here for, yeah. So what this is gonna do is this is gonna create a Node.js basic app with Express for me. And okay, seems like I have a little bit of trouble. Let me see what the issue is. This sort of an error typically tends to happen if the terminal you're using does not have administrative access, or sometimes This does have missing npm cache. So let me do one thing. I will just fix this for in a second. Just a minute there. Sorry about that, folks. Mhm. See, this is exactly why we also need to know how to debug these. Let me check if my npm version is all right. Yep, npm doesn't seem to be a problem. So we'll just reinstall and the express generator once. Oops. This is definitely a little bit of a trouble. Install -g express generator. See, that works. Okay, wait. Before we do that, I'm just gonna go into this little directory I created for myself. Then I'm gonna go ahead and enter express. Finally. So if you can see my screen, there is this little folder that I created. It has installed. It's created little express. It's essentially a node template that I have here with me right now. It's an empty scaffold. It's essentially a scaffolded application, and it is a new Express application using the Express Generator. Express is a popular framework for building and running Node.js applications. So our Node app is essentially an Express application here. And since we have our template up there, I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna install all the dependencies it needs for me right now. So what this does is this is gonna just install any dependencies I need for this specific application. As you can see, it created little node modules folder there for me, which contains all of these dependencies that I need for this particular web app. Now, what we can do is we can run the app once, see how it would look in our browser here right now. So let me just set these debugging settings, and I'm gonna npm start, which will allow me to run the app on my local host. So it is now listening on port 3000. What I just got to do is I'm gonna go here, HTTPS. You can see the local ACD lava up there right now. But yeah, we're gonna go localhost 3000. No, not. Don't tell me. I hope I'm not doing this wrong. Wow. Damn, I'm not in the best shape right now. So sorry about that. Okay, I think I've got what's happening. Yep. So it's just an error because HTTPS was not enabled. So now, since it's working correctly, you should be able to see that it says Express, welcome to Express. That's the template we have. Now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to stop running this app for a second, and we're going to open this directory here in VS Code for us. So as I come here to VS Code, I can see my entire application here. I'm just going to go ahead and do one thing. I'm going to go to my routes. I'm going to visit index.js, and I'm going to change the title here from Express. What this is going to do is, since the Express file uses the Jade files here to create our HTML page, I am gonna change the title to Aditya's test instead, for example. After that, once again, when I I don't need to set to if I just run npm start here once. Oops, I guess I did have to do that after all. Ah, syntax error. Escape sequences for single apostrophes. My bad on that. I seem to be having a few errors, but you know, live and learn. Yeah, we're back up and running. So if I go back to my website now and I just reload it, it says Aditya's test now because I changed that there in our route here for the index.js file. Now, since we've got a working template up and running for us, let's go ahead, let's do one thing. We're gonna now deploy this to this app service web app that would created already. So for that, since we've got the app service extension installed, now what you gotta do is you gotta deploy it to web app. This shows that, this is the folder that we want to deploy. Now, once we do that, since we'd already created a web app, I'm just gonna go ahead with that. But if you want to create a new web app for yourself, you can do that directly through VS Code as well. So I'm just gonna deploy it here. It gives me a warning just to ask me whether I want to deploy, because if I deploy from here directly, it's going to overwrite any previous deployment and that cannot be undone. So skip for now. So as soon as the deployment begins, I can check the outputs. It's going to deploy it for me. And as soon as it's done, I can go back to my website that I created, the web app that we had created earlier. And after the deployment, it will show us that the file, of course, it has been deployed. Oh, that was quick. Well, almost. Finished successfully. Deployment is not yet fully complete. I think otherwise it shows me a little notification here as soon as that is done. So as soon as we get a notification that it is complete the entire process, yep, successful deployment. So now we can go back to the website what created. We just reload that. Oops, I seem to be having a little error. I'm a little confused as to why this happened. This should not have happened. Let me try deploying it directly to a new web app from here directly, and we'll get to that in a bit. I'll just create a new web app, the test 2. So this is a trouble we do tend to have at times with the routing, and we're going to explore that later. In the meantime, I'm just going to create another free web app for us, and it's going to create a resource group with all the necessary deployments. But in the meantime, what's going to happen is that once the deployment is successful, it'll show us the exact same little feature here. So it should look the exact same once the deployment is complete. I'm very sorry about that issue. I don't believe that should have happened. I will definitely look into that as soon as we're done here. In the meantime, again, as you know, our resource group is being created. If you have any queries, throw them into the chat here. So I am looking into the error. Apparently, there sometimes tends to be a little issue in creating an IIS file here. We're gonna get to that later. That shouldn't always be an issue, but seems like we had a slight problem. In the meantime, I'm just gonna go ahead, debug this, and then we're gonna try and deploy it later on once again as it creates this new little resource for us. It seems like, okay, yeah. Mhm. We're gonna try and debug that once we get through the basic deployment if it runs, hopefully. That is not something that I have seen in the past. Python and want to learn Flask soon. Will deployment be yes, it's gonna be the same. It works the same way. So yeah, right now it's just gonna go and deploy the web app for me. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna open this link up instead. Deployment is taking place right now. So yeah, exactly. This is an issue that I have heard of. It's something I experienced for the first time, but when we deploy from VS Code here, it should work all right for the time being. This is a tried and tested version for me. But yeah, if you work with Flask instead later on, the deployment works in the same way. You can absolutely go ahead and do that. Otherwise, in case anyone still has any queries, please feel free to mention them in the chat here. That is totally appreciated. I guess we're almost done. Deployment seems to be working all right for the time being. Hoping for the best in this case. By the way, if you like this themes like these, you can always install them using again the extensions marketplace here. So you can go ahead, find themes, any other thing that you might want for your own little work later. It is deploying all our files and running post deployment. Ah, seems like okay, we've got. See, there it works finally. So as you can see, the deployed website is the exact same as what we'd created earlier. Now that our deployment is up and running, we've seen how we can deploy it from VS Code. But if you think about it, going again and again to, create a new little deployment every single time, it might be a little inconvenient if you want to, if you're always deploying from VS Code. So let's do one thing. Let's create a little CI/CD from GitHub so that whenever you basically push to your GitHub repo, it deploys the app for you. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to publish this repository to GitHub. I'm going to do it as a private repo. Seems like it already exists apparently. Damn. Anyway, I'm just going to remove node modules from here in the package log. And okay, the rest shouldn't be, I mean, it shouldn't be a problem either way. But yeah, let's have it get deployed to my GitHub account. So if you see this happen, we've got other test too. We should be able to find this resource here created for us. And once we've got that up and running, what we're gonna do is we're gonna hop over to my GitHub where a repository is being created for us as we speak. Oh, it's been done already. So that was quick. We've got our code here in this repository. Now let's do one thing. Let's connect this to Deployment Center. So Deployment Center essentially allows us to manage our deployments. As you see, it shows us our former deployment, which was basically when we pushed it directly from VS Code. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect it with GitHub. So as soon as we do that, as soon as we choose to connect it with GitHub, we can select our organization, whatever repository we want. That is a lot of repositories. Node.js 2. We can select the branch as well. Just we specified the runtime stack earlier, and it asks for all of these details because it creates a workflow, a GitHub action, which as soon as you select this particular configuration, it'll add this workflow here. As soon as you save it, it'll add this to our GitHub repository, and then it'll set it up for deployment. So if I reload this page right now, you can see that it's added a workflow for me. It's added a GitHub action, which will then be used to manage any deployments. So even as we see it happen right now, it is starting the workflow run for us. It'll set up a job, it'll manage our deployment for us, which actually makes life extremely convenient because if we've got CI/CD like this set up already, what it means is that I just need to push to my GitHub. The rest, the Azure's gonna manage itself. I don't need to worry about deploying it separately as well. That makes life convenient for me as a developer. Now, even as it is deployed right now, we're gonna see the same website because we had deployed this exact thing. So once this deployment is complete, we're gonna hop over, we're gonna make a slight little change to our title there, and we're gonna see as it is deployed so that we get an idea of why setting up this sort of a CI/CD makes life easier for us. Deployments always take a little bit of time. So in the meantime, what we can do is we can just go ahead, visit our code. Let's just change this to Aditya's GitHub deployment. That's just what we're gonna keep. In the meantime, let's see. It's manage the deployments, it's set up. So, when this is set up, you'll be able to see that the deployment has now shifted. And in the logs, it shows me build/deploy logs here instead of app logs. And the commit author here is me because it has been deployed from my account. Now, what happens here is I'm just going to add this. I'm going to push this little change to my GitHub repository. Commit, push. Little error because we had to pull that earlier change, which essentially added the workflow to our repository. So I'm just going to pull that change, push once again, and after that, we should be good to go. So yes, as that is done, you'll be able to see that we now have a new in progress because a commit has been made here. A change has been made to our branch. Our changes have been pushed. So I can just check my deployment here. It's already there at the npm. Okay, it's built and installed already. That was fast. So as soon as this deployment is complete, we'll see the changes reflected in the website. So yeah, this is also something we can check directly from. Oh, this took me back here. Typically, you can check your deployments on Deployment Center. It seems like my build is almost done. We're getting close right now. Sorry. Is this running the Oryx build? So what that means is yes, my deployment is complete. So let me just reload this page. Yeah. See, the changes are reflected. Hi, Adam. Glad to see you here. So there we have it. We have our GitHub deployment ready for us. That was nice. That was comfortable. That was good. So yes, that essentially shows how we can manage our deployment, how can we can deploy our Node.js application to Azure App Service. Now, the error that we faced with the other web app is something I'm gonna explore. In the meantime, it would be really cool if you could go through this process. If you joined the session right now, just go back. We can scroll over. I can talk about some of the steps like just so if Adams is joined right now, it would be really cool, Adam, if you could go ahead, register to the math challenges and this particular link, I mean, this particular session once again, you can just hop over to the math challenges link. It will be there in the chat for you. And at the same time, once you're there at the math challenges, what you can do is, okay, let me just add this in the chat once again. As soon as that's done, you can just go ahead, scroll down. You will see deploy a Node.js website using Azure App Service. Just click on that and in there as well. That would be great. And of course, once you're done with your deployment, once all of that is done, we do have one more little step that we're going to work at. And that is, of course, submitting our little application here to the dev post. So for that, what you got to do is you've got to hop over to the MLH March Challenges dev post. I am sharing the link here in the chat. I'll also put it up as a little banner here for us so that you can see this link here as well. So hop over to the MLH March Challenges dev post. You can just go create a project. We'll create a project for ourselves. I'm just going to name it Node.js Azure App Service Deployment. Oops. And I'm going to mention day 10. Elevator pitch. You can just mention something similar. It's not a big issue here, at least for this March challenge. As soon as that's done, you just go ahead, save and continue. In this, what we're going to do is we're going to just mention what it does for the time being. Deployed a Node.js app to Azure App Service. And I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to mention this little link here as well. When I talk about built with, I'll just mention Node. Node.js, okay, cool. And we're going to mention Azure App Service. Or if you just want to mention Azure, that's cool as well. Totally your call. We'll just mention the tryout link. Okay, I jumped ahead a little quicker. Just another thing that we need to do is add our GitHub repository. So I'm just going to add this link here. And once that is done, video link is not something you need to worry too much about right now. We're just going to save and continue. So once we reach the additional info page, make sure to select March 10th. That is the date. Save and continue, and then we are ready to submit. So as soon as we select, we agree to the rules and the dev post terms and services, you can submit the project. So yeah, there we have it. We have our submission for day 10, and we have successfully deployed a Node.js application here to Azure App Service. How cool is that? I hope that was fun for those of you who stayed around. If you liked what you learned and you want to explore more of Azure, please do let me know. I would love to share some more resources with you as well. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Really means a lot. And if you like, if you want to explore Azure, I think you mentioned that you work with Python and you want to work with Flask. So you can totally use Azure App Service for those deployments. In fact, if you check out the Azure App Service website that I shared earlier, you will see that it supports a variety of platforms. So let me show how all the options in the Azure portal ones. No, we're getting a nice little comments. If you can share online resources where we can get more of it. So for me personally, I think the best resource to learn more about Azure is Microsoft Learn. That has absolutely amazing course content on Microsoft Azure. You can definitely go ahead, check it out, search Azure. It's got Azure fundamentals, it's got dedicated parts on all of these activities. So Microsoft Learn is the way to go for Azure. And it has some amazing courses with hands-on activities, which also include sandboxes on Azure. So you can actually get some hands-on experience while learning these courses. Yeah. I'm always on the Azure bandwagon. I love Azure. I think it tends to be very developer friendly. And um, while I have more recently started working with AWS and I appreciate its features, Azure still has my heart. So I tend to always prefer working with Azure whenever I am building my own projects. Have I taken any certifications? Not yet, although I do plan to later on. I haven't gotten to taking a certification right now. But definitely, that's a good idea. I do actually happen to have a voucher. I hope I'll use it before it expires. But Azure Fundamentals is the one I'm going to try out first, and then I will look into the Azure Developer Associate. If you want to learn content for AZ900, that I believe is the Azure Fundamentals, right? Um, Microsoft Learn has a dedicated learning course for Azure Fundamentals. So if you hop on to Microsoft Learn right now, it has broken up the Azure Fundamentals course into about 9 parts, I believe, a number of parts, definitely. And you can learn the entire, it's got 6 parts, 6 parts. So it's got a 6 part course for Azure Fundamentals, and it's broken that into core Azure concepts. And then, it talks about core solutions, security and network features, identity governance, privacy and compliance features. It's also got cost management and SLAs. So you've got all the content there on Microsoft Learn right now. For fundamentals, I can just send you the link there. That's a great place to learn. So, you can just see it there. Awesome. I'm happy you like the content. And yeah, Adam, that's definitely a great place to learn. That's actually where I've learned all about Azure myself. So it's a great place to start. They've got it structured in a very good way. Apart from that, we've also got a lot of content on YouTube, to be honest. A lot of free content, a lot of free blogs. But this is the best place to start. This is also the information, the course that Microsoft themselves recommends to prepare with. All right. Do we have any other queries in the meantime? In case we don't, then I guess we can conclude with the session. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in. I'm really happy that you're interested in Azure, that you want to take a certification. Azure is actually a great platform. I have built a lot with Azure myself. I have used a variety of services now, and it's made my life so much easier, to be honest. So I do recommend. Thank you so much for that, and have a great day or night wherever you might. But keep learning, building, sharing, and happy hacking. Thank you. Bye bye.